So glad to have you here today. I'm Maria Coriel Martin, founder of Art Toolkit, and I'm just thrilled to be joined today with Genine Carvalheira, a wonderful, hello, Genine, inspiring artist, interior and industrial designer, and avid traveler. Originally from the US, but now you live in, let's see if I can pronounce this right, Genine, Bogotá, Colombia.
Bogota.
Bogota. And Genine, we had the pleasure of meeting at Sketcherfest over the summer, where I was just so impressed with like these gorgeous spreads of sketches and your tools, not to mention your just terrific energy, and loved learning that you filled more than 85 sketchbooks.
Yeah.
You're a longtime sketcher. You've done a lot of teaching. You're the current president of the Global Urban Sketchers organization. And right when I met you, you were just also about to take this big adventure to Norway for some travel journaling, sketching adventures. And we
Yeah.
just thought, gosh, really want to learn more of what you do, more of your background, and also wanted to hear about your adventure to Norway. So this just feels like a really fun bookend to our meeting over the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. It was so great to finally meet you in person. I know I followed you guys online. I've seen all your social media, I've seen the live demos, but getting to meet you and talk about things in person and getting to try more of your tools and seeing all the stuff you carry was incredible. And that Sketcherfest event was just incredible to be around so many amazing artists, right? Who are
Oh,
excited about travel and sketching.
all the energy. I mean, that's just the fun of it, is getting to meet people in person. And sometimes it feels like the candy store of like, oh, what are the cool little goodies you've got over here? Oh my gosh, I really want some of those. And like, oh, let me learn how to do that. And just thinking about that community. And a little bit before we went live, we were just talking about just some of the value of like the whole urban sketching community, of people coming together in this really like warm, accessible way to like share and inspire each other and go out on these little, adventures, big and small.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like you said, we were talking earlier, I mean, the urban sketching community for me has been one of the most generous communities in the
Mhm.
world. With their time, their resources, their sketchbooks, their tools, everything. We share so much. And I've learned so much I've learned from taking workshops, but I think I've equally learned just from looking at other people's sketchbooks and being able to talk to them, right? Seeing how
Yeah,
each of us
yeah.
captures the world in our own way with our own tools.
Well, can you share a little bit of your background? What drew you into sketching in the first place?
Yeah, so I started sketching in 2007, and I think I've always been the person who wanted to sketch. And I went to design school, and design school is really different. So I studied industrial design. I designed cars, toys, toasters, products, right? So those are all things that I thought up and I drew, and they had to be technical and they had to be perfect. So I never really drew from the world itself. And every time I tried to do that, I messed up and it wasn't perfect. So I would get frustrated and I would stop. And then, like many of us, I read Danny Gregory's book, The Creative License, and it changed the way I thought about drawing. So I thought about it now instead of trying to be perfect, um, sit in the feeling of the act of drawing. And then
Mm,
that's what changed my world. So
mm,
if I sketched, I was connected and I was grounded and I was just having fun putting, marks on paper. And I knew if it
mm.
didn't come out like I liked, I could always turn the page. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
you can always, then I would go back, like go back a few days later. And I feel like when you go back, there's always something you can find in that page that you liked, right? So maybe
Yeah.
the whole drawing isn't great, but there's still something when you have that kind of time away to go back. And I started drawing in February of 2007, and then I haven't stopped.
Oh, well, I just love what you said about and thinking about the contrast between sort of the industrial design approach and then sketching, where, I think about like the emotion and the stories and those other elements of place and then your experience that like are part of it, versus perhaps like the precision of design and
Yeah,
um,
and I think over the years that's changed for me too. So even when I was drawing and focusing on the feeling, I still wanted a building to be perfect, right? So I would be counting all the windows and making sure there were enough. And um, a few years ago, I don't know how long ago, I read a really great children's book called Ish. And the
mhm.
basic, do you know the book?
I do. Is that Peter Reynolds, I think?
I think so, but I
Yeah, I
can't
have his
recall the
book, The
author.
Dot, too, which is really charming.
Yeah, yeah. And so I guess for those out there, the basic concept, small kid was drawing, and it wasn't perfect, so he crumpled it up. And then after a while, he catches his sister stealing, or his sibling stealing one of the drawings, chases them down the room, and inside are all their drawings on the wall.
Mm,
And the kid who drew said, "Well, what are these? They're not, that's not perfect. That's not this." And she's like, "But it's ish."
mhm,
And
mhm.
so that created a shift in me too. Because I mean, I could draw the building, but if it's missing a window and that's not integral to its architecture, meaning that's not what makes it famous, that it has
Yeah,
the X
yeah,
amount of windows, then it's
yeah.
ish, right? But
Oh, I
I
love
captured the
it.
essence of what
hmm
was there.
Oh, and it's what so many of us try to do as we like practice and develop our voices and think about finding yeah, that idea and emotion. And I love with your work that you roll in so many of those stories. And I know that's part of what you're going to touch on today is the ways that words and pictures can work together. And just a side note too, to everyone joining us too, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions, go ahead and jot them in. And I just saw a note looking for a repeat of the book name. So that's The Creative License. Is that right,
Yep. So
Janine?
the Creative License by Danny Gregory was the book I read to kind of get me over that hump of perfection. That's how it worked for me. And
hmm
then the
hmm
other book is a children's book called Ish, ISH.
Yeah, and I think that author is Peter Reynolds. Just lovely. Um, well, do you want to pull up some of your tools and give us a little peek at some of the things you like to use while you're out in the world, Janine?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as we talked about, the title of this demo was Adventure Journaling. So I do travel significantly. I think after my upcoming trip next week, I will have traveled 150 days this year.
Oh my
Um,
goodness, you are really on the road.
yeah, we are a lot. And so for me, so much of my like tools that I use have to be portable. And so I mean, my two favorites. So I've got two of the art toolkit palettes. For years, I've used just this smaller set because for me, like I said, portability is key. And then just recently at Sketcherfest, after seeing Maria, I got this big set. So I can go between the two, but I don't know if everybody out there saw. I did provide some of my colors. A lot of them are the same, and then I've just been trying some new things with a couple new colors. But my basic toolkit would be this small palette, um, a water brush. I will take with me a travel brush. So this is an Escoda travel brush.
What size
Um,
is that? Like a number 12?
this is a number 12. Yeah,
hmm
it's a number 12 Prado. I generally use only, that's such an economy for tools. I use one brush for everything.
hmm
Like whether it's just this small water brush or this, I don't like to carry too many things because for me, fumbling around, dropping things is just inconvenient. And most of my time it's sketching on the go. So I'm generally standing when I sketch. So it's how do I keep those things contained? Also, so I carry all of my tools. I don't know if we can maybe switch to the picture me
Oh,
that I'm
sure. Let me pull you
facing.
up. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So it's a little bit easier to see. So this is just a passport holder. And this I consider my big kit. I just upgraded from an old one that broke, but this passport kit was about, I mean, let me say $10 on Amazon, but it can fit the larger palette right
Oh,
inside.
look at that. That's perfect. Just about passport size.
Yeah, yeah. And then so what's so great, I'm gonna stand up, but I carry it around my waist or around my side. So as I'm drawing, I can reach in to grab my tools and then
Mm.
sketch. So I don't have to bend down, keep things on the ground, and sit. So that's my biggest setup. I carry this and then I'm generally working in a sketchbook. I don't know the size that you see here, or a little bit bigger. I work in an A4 usually,
hmm
so a lot larger. Just because there's so much that I kind of want to capture, and I feel lately in recent years when I've had more time to draw more, um, I've kind of moved into a bigger format. So kind of where
And
I'm working now.
when you're so I'm imagining you out in the world now and you've got your kind of little hip pack with some of your tools, and then are you just carrying your sketchbook and maybe it fits in a backpack when you're not working on it? And
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I generally carry the same backpack and I don't leave the house without, I mean, I would say almost ever. I don't leave the house without my sketchbook and at least a small kit. So a small kit for me would most likely include 4 pens. And so I'll carry usually 4 colors um, of ink. And so I use the Diatramentus line, the document ink, which I know you guys carry.
yeah,
Um,
we love those. Urban Gray,
so
that's the one we have on our website. Uh-huh.
yeah, I've got urban gray, I've got black, I've got dark blue, and then this color, their dark red, is
Oh yeah?
super incredible. Yeah, it's got like a nice brown
Mm.
undertone that I feel I don't know, just super incredible because sometimes I use color and sometimes I just use ink.
Oh.
Um yeah, so
Oh, we'll have to check that out. And folks are also
like
curious to learn what pens you have, if you might just share the specifics.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So this is just an example of how this is that kind
Oh, that
of
ink. Uh-huh.
that dark red, but it almost has a brown feel to
Oh
it.
yeah, like a sepia. Oh, that's beautiful. And then you're using two tones of ink also on your sketch.
Yeah, so here I've got a black here, I've got a blue here, and then I've got that brown. So this is kind of an instance where you can use ink with minimal color of watercolor,
Hmm.
and then use that ink to create depth.
Are you using a little tone from your watercolor palette or just blending the ink while it's still a little wet on your page to get some of that nice value?
Yeah, no, that's a tone from watercolor because all of my inks are waterproof.
Hmm.
So in the event I want to, paint over what I draw. So
Hmm.
that was probably a little bit of ultramarine. Um,
Mm.
kind of dumbed down a little bit with a lot of water and sometimes I'll add maybe Payne's Gray. Depends. My smaller palette has Payne's Gray by Winsor Newton.
Hmm.
But my bigger one doesn't have that just because I ran out. So, that one's got graphite. Art supplies are harder to find here in Colombia. So sometimes it's what I have on hand or what I can get from the US.
Hmm. Hmm.
For tools, people were asking. So I use the platinum carbon pen.
Hmm.
This I keep with gray ink. Um,
Mm.
this is, I think, the second pen I ever bought. That's a fountain pen. It's a Pilot 78G. I think it's like a fine point. And I've had this, I think, since 2007, and it has never, ever failed.
Oh, what
Like,
a workhorse.
yeah, I almost never clean it. And and I don't use it every day, but it has been amazing. Um, I don't think pens have to be expensive. So these are quite economical. I think maybe when I purchased this, it was like $16, $17 US. Um, I just got this Lamy Safari, so I haven't used it too much. I know a lot of sketchers out there are fond of them. Um, but it was a gift we had gotten from one of the sponsors for the symposium. So it was this year's Buenos Aires Symposium color.
Mm.
And then I also have a Pelican 250, which I love so much as well. It's a little bit more of a higher end pen. It's got a gold nib. But what I love about it is that I can reverse write. So I can get 2 line weights out of the same pen. So I don't know, I could try it right here on the corner of a page. Um, but for me, like the minimal amount of tools, like I said earlier, is better. So it's kind of
Hmm.
hard to see. I'll bring it up closer.
Oh, so you've
But
got like a really fine line and then a little heavier line.
yeah,
Hmm.
just by turning the pen over. And so
Mm.
if I want to leave the house with literally just 3 things, I could take this pen or any pen. So many pens reverse right, that it's just finding the one that works for you. So I could leave the house with this one pen, my art toolkit palette, and this water brush. And I
Hmm.
pretty much need nothing else. That's like super basic.
So some folks are asking about the desk pen. Did you tape around the handle so that you could post the lid?
I did. I did. I use electrical tape to make that stay. Because everybody who has one knows like this thing just ends up wherever. So
Yeah, yeah. I cut the end of mine. I trimmed it so it would fit in my pocket art toolkit. I use that desk pen a lot also. And it was just a tiny bit too long, so I just sawed it off. And
yeah.
I'll keep some notes here and run them by you at the end. Some folks would love if we could add to the description some of your tools. So we'll be sure to everybody watching to make a note at least of some of your pens. I know, but I love that they're accessible and that you've got different pens for different colors. Have you color coded them? Do you have that beautiful red in your red pen, or do you just know
Um,
what?
I do, but not really on purpose. It just happened that that was one I had available. So I just know because I use them all the time. I do carry some other pens as well, but really they're just more like, okay, well, I want a finer nib. So, I also have a Kaweco All Sport. It's just a finer nib in a black pen. I tend to carry more than one black pen in case
Hmm.
I run out of ink. Um, just makes it easier.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then, yeah, and we were talking before. I also use a giant clip. So, because I sketch on location, and I generally stand, like I was talking about earlier, I like things attached to me so I don't have to look for them.
Yeah, they
Um,
don't fall or get blown away.
yeah. So, here is my sketchbook. And I have just a giant metal clip with two magnets. I think I got them at like a Home Depot. They're no brand in particular, but this my art toolkit palette uh, is magnetized to it, so I could sketch and then stand up. So I'll just put it up in the other. Then I could stand up, and then I have my palette here, and I could work from the paper to the palette. Um, to warn everybody out there, these magnets will demagnetize the pans. So I had to double-sided tape them in just to make sure they didn't fall out. So has nothing to do with the art toolkit palette. It's just magnets to magnets. It's some sort of science that I don't quite
Oh,
understand.
that's fascinating. Yeah, we haven't heard a lot of experiences about that, but I'll have to play because that's funny. But sure seems like a convenient way to hold your palette.
Yeah. And it works for both sizes, right? So it doesn't have to just be the small. It holds the large as well. So, and then by using this big clip, I don't know which area is better. By using the big clip on the large book, I can hold the book with one hand. So often when we're out drawing, it's hard, you trying to hold the sketch in kind of the crook of your arm. But by using a big clip on the spine, I can just hold it with the one hand.
It's
So
not
that's
gonna.
been kind of a
Mm.
convenient discovery for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Um, more questions.
Yes, of course.
You've got some wonderful colors in your palettes. Can you tell us a little bit about any of your go-to colors you use while out sketching? Or I'm sure it changes depending on the environment too.
Yeah, definitely. So after moving here to Bogota, I really well, after meeting up with somebody else and they looked at my color palette, they're like, "Oh my goodness, your color palette, they're all warm colors, right? Like you don't have anything cool in them." And that was because of where we live. Everything here is brick, and so all of the buildings are brick. So I tend to carry multiple colors, multiple shades of kind of orange or gold. Um, but I have a couple like clutch colors that I don't think I could live without. So the first one, here, let me get something to point with. So this here is Daniel Smith Lunar Earth. This color I discovered not long ago, and that has been a game changer because I don't know if you could see here, I'll bring it up. Like it's got just such a beautiful granulation to it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one of my longtime favorites since I started painting, just the
yeah.
textures it creates for landscapes.
Yeah, landscapes and bricks. When you live in a place that like when I look outside, I see 20 brick buildings. So how can I vary the texture of those bricks? So it's just by adding that lunar earth into the mix, changes that up.
Yeah, let the
Um,
watercolor do the work for you.
absolutely, absolutely. Another color that I couldn't live without in my palette. So is this color right here. So I'm using this one, SWC. It's a brownish yellow, but I just discovered on a Daniel Smith dot card because we had been those had been in the goodie bags at the symposium that they have a rich green gold and these colors are so similar. But those stand for the base of all of my trees, all of my grass, like all of my nature. And then I build on top of that. So that has been a game changer because it's so bright. Um, and I don't know, just the warmth behind it just works really well when I'm mixing it with any of the other colors, ultramarine, indanthrone, all the others to develop those kind of different shades of green inside my, natural pieces.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then yeah, for nature wise, especially what I've been using a lot, especially on the trek in Norway, um, would have been indanthrone, ultramarine, and graphite gray. So the kind of this palette here, um,
Hmm.
I would say is primarily what I used for that 21 days of that trip.
Oh, it's funny. I went to Norway. It was in I think 2022 and or 2023, but some very similar colors.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
palette.
and
I love indanthrone and graphite and yeah, yeah. That green gold though, I have to now I want to go play with it. Rich green gold. Beautiful.
yeah, yeah. And I would say for oddly, cobalt teal blue when I was in
Hmm.
Norway for the glaciers and some of those other things.
Yeah, yeah, you get those big skies and cool tones with the sky or glaciers. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
usually have about, I don't know, seven blues and then like two reds.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've only got two reds, and I don't use them all that often. But yeah, mine are the browns and the blues.
Well, can you give us a little tour of some of your Norway adventure and tell us a little bit more about the experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was invited to teach and to teach in Norway. So every year the European Union selects three cities to be their cultural capital for the year. And a tiny little place called Buda, Norway, like way, way up above the Arctic Circle, was selected. And so they put on a, a year's worth of cultural events. So that could have been music, could have been art, it's any form of art. Um, and to go along with that, there was an organized trek, so a 21-day trek from on this thing called the Nordlandsruta right here. So it's a 650-kilometer hike or trail, and two teams did it. One started from the north and one from the south. And after 21 days, we met in the middle of a field in the middle to finish out the event together. So for that part of the event, I was asked to hike along with them and then to document our trip in sketches. So every day we would sketch, or every day we would hike. So it could be between 25 kilometers and let's say 10 kilometers every day. Um, and then I would try and document our journey when I could. So sometimes that would be when we would take a break for 15 minutes. So most of my sketches, I would say, in this book were done on location in under 20 minutes. Um, there were a couple of instances where I had to finish when we got back to the cabin at night. Um, but yeah, it's about just capturing those moments. And right. So like this one here, it's capturing our lunch sitting in front of this amazing glacier. And it's really hard to see, but there's three dots right here. And those were three people having lunch on the glacier and then hiking across the glacier.
Oh, I think I can just see them.
Yeah, you can barely see these like tiny three
Yep.
dots, but um, but then it was also things like this here, right? Having our lunch in a hut. So that trip was about the big moments, that big landscape, that big, but it's also about, the experiences we had being together. Um, I did this, so this is just us sitting at lunch. Um, and then some of the cabins we went to. I made three giant sketchbooks, accordions. So these are actually, I
Oh,
did
here,
about
let me spotlight you
27
too.
feet. Yeah, so I
20.
did.
Okay, hang on. Say that one more time. So you
So
made these.
I
Uh-huh.
made these, and so this is one of two books, and in total, oops, sorry for the mic. It's 27 feet of drawings.
Oh,
So,
that's amazing. So what
uh,
kind of paper do you like to sketch on?
so I typically like a cold press. I prefer not 100% water, 100% cotton, because I don't have patience.
Hmm.
And sometimes for me, some of the ones I've tried in the past tend to take a little bit longer to dry. And because I don't have a lot of time, because I'm always on the go, I like when things dry a little bit quicker. So for these books, actually, Speedball, they sponsored my art materials for it. So I use their fluid paper. So not the Fluid 100, but just their fluid block. And then I cut it up and piece together the sketchbooks.
So you just glued sort of little panels together to get the accordion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So here you
Oh, so
could kind of
cool.
see,
Oh, yep.
look,
Mm-hmm.
they're glued at each corner. And
Oh, what a
so
beautiful. Uh-huh.
for the most part, it stayed intact over 377 kilometers, which I think is, those with the math can correct me. It's either 234 or 254 miles.
Yeah, more than 250. I
Okay.
can't quite do the math in my head.
Yeah.
Those are terrific. So, and I love the narrative aspect of an accordion that it can expand out and you can work across seams. And I see that you've got a mix of sort of the color and also black and white. And I wonder sort of how much you're thinking about some of your composition. If you have sort of your own little preconceived idea of like sort of some ways to organize your sketches and use the negative space.
Yeah, so I tend to leave quite a bit of negative space in my drawings. I don't really pre-plan it. I think I've been doing it a while, so I don't know, I kind of have a sense of where things want to go, but I definitely, for me, that white space is important. Um, and it was, what one drawing kind of lends itself to the other. So as I look at a page, right, I'll kind of plan as I go, okay, this was here. How can I leave something? I like to have kind of a movement or kind of a flow on a page.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
sometimes I think about it like that, right? Like how does my timeline kind of move? And then I like to leave space for text. Because
Hmm.
for me, I drawing tells one picture, but words help supplement that. And I think
Mm.
for me, my sketchbooks are visual journals. So, at each location we were at, I would either write my reflections or feelings or things I've heard, or, sometimes call out something like a new food that I tried or a quote like that I heard somebody say. So I
Hmm.
feel like
Hmm.
those are the things that the sketch can't tell you, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how hot it was or, what we were joking about.
So to back up one moment, we've got
Yeah.
folks who are curious, and me too, about how you attached your pages for your accordion. Did you use like a, a, a glue, bookbinding glue, or a tape?
I used just a plain old glue. So being here, sorry, I'm looking back here because it's on the shelf. So for one, I started using a glue stick, and the other one I just used an all-purpose paper glue that I found at a craft store here in Colombia. And so the brand names wouldn't match up to much, and all of the labels are in Spanish. So I was using Google Translate inside the store. So my Spanish is decent, but chemicals, I'm just not aware, I don't have that
Yeah, yeah.
vocabulary yet. So yeah.
Um, can you talk a little bit more about your sort of the intention of how you use words? And I love, you're the writing you're doing with your sketches looks, it's really cohesive. That's the word I'm looking for. And intentional and some of what you're thinking about with your use of type and handwriting.
Yeah. I feel like type or handwriting and typography plays it's a design element, right? So when I'm looking at the page, I'm not designing, I'm capturing what I see, and I'm creating a layout that feels pleasing to me. And then I choose the text, the way I draw the text to fit the mood of the drawing. So I
Mm.
have this example, like w- the way you write one word, right, changes the feeling. So this happy, versus this happy versus, this happy. And so I do think about that when I'm writing inside my sketchbook is how does the scene and what I'm feeling, like what kind of type do I feel that requires to kind of
Mhm.
keep the mood of what I'm going. So that's what I think about when I think about how I want to write what I write. Um, and I think including the writing enhances enhances a drawing and enhances a layout. So like I was saying before, like text can tell a different story. So this here is an example of an obligatory plane sketch, as we call them in the urban sketching world. So this, you can see that I'm on a plane and that's about it. Well, that plane ride was kind of crazy. There was a big family and there must have been 7 babies and they all were crying at the same time.
Oh no, noisy.
On the first day, yeah. And like just that experience was happening. And so, this year, like adding these bubbles, adding the words that I felt made up crying sounds changes the story for me on the picture. So for here, using this red color with these bubbles, with these like wah signs, that tells the story of the actual experience where this just an interior plane sketch.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much more dynamic and energetic to have how that expressiveness comes through.
So thanks. So it's kind of like that, how do we enhance the narrative, right? Because it's for me, it's about telling the story of where I am and what I'm experiencing.
So can you walk us through a little bit? I'm trying to imagine here I am, I'm Genine out in a spot of sort of your process of going from say noticing to sketching to painting to adding some words of things you're noticing and what you're maybe thinking about. What I really have appreciated seeing is it seems like you really distill your work down and there's this real sense of spaciousness and yeah, do you have any thoughts around that of sort of what captures your attention
Yeah.
and that little process of going and from sketching to painting to noting?
Yeah. So obviously it depends on where I am, right? For something kind of like this, what caught my attention was because of the experience that happened directly prior. We walked through something called like the Stone Valley, which was 9 kilometers of all rock and like almost no grass or anything like that. So coming out of that, when we took a rest, like I sat down and for me, it was, about these rocks that we had just come through. So, and then this great kind of landscape in the background. So for me, it was about sitting down and capturing that. And so I knew for this, I needed to add some color because just those circles in and of itself wouldn't tell the story. And I knew what I wanted to capture and how I wanted to capture it quickly because we had about 15 minutes. Um, for something like this, it had been a rainy day. And so we were in the cabin and I hadn't gotten to draw too much. But everybody hung all of their clothes up, right? Because I don't know, for those who have hiked multiple days in a row, like sometimes you're just wet and sometimes like your stuff is just everywhere. And you get into a cabin and you peel things off. And it's like, let's get those things as dry as possible, as quick as possible, because, well, you need to put them back on the next day. And so for me, it was about telling that story and being minimal. Even this here, similar on the second to last day. For me, the building itself didn't matter. So I left that part out because the story here was really told
Mm.
by the clothes, by the boots, by the fire. Having the wall in the background, to me, wouldn't have added anything to that part of the story.
Oh, I love that. Kind of asking yourself like what tells the story and not being afraid to, I mean, just looking at that, like dramatically edit and just
Yeah,
those
yeah.
boots in that picture have such character with those simple contour lines and all gathered around.
Thanks. Yeah, and I mean, I'm always truthful, right? So like I'm truthful to the scene that's in front of me. But I do edit because like I said, what enhances, my my memory of my experience. Because I think
Mhm,
that's what it's
mhm.
for, right? All of these things I draw, and even this project, I was there to document it. But I was documenting our experience of it. And so the other hikers seeing this, they were like, "Oh my goodness, yes, that's the boot. Like that's what happens on hike." So I was grateful to hear from them that they felt that that was a visual representation for them too. Nobody said, "Oh, you didn't put the building in," you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
No outside criticism. Do you, and you mentioned these usually take about like 15 to 30 minutes on average?
Yeah, yeah. So I would
Mhm.
say, Yeah, there was like one or two that maybe I finished back at camp because we didn't have enough time. One was by camp, literally, I don't know if I have it in here. I drew the candle because I remember, yeah. So it was this one here. I had to finish up by candlelight. So even things like that, I'll just add because I'm telling the story of my experience. So one of the cabins didn't have any electricity
Mhm.
and we didn't have enough time. So maybe I did most of this in 15 minutes. And then when we got back to the cabin, then I went in and kind of added some darks, added some color pencil. Oh, because I forgot to say, I also I layer sometimes. So in addition to the pens and the watercolor, I'll carry some color pencil and watercolor pencil to then layer on top if I feel
Mm.
that I want to add. So they're no brand in particular I favor. They're just they're color pencils I've accumulated over the years. And so for that, I try to pair the color in my palette with like a with a color pencil. So that way I can kind of darken it up. Maybe you can see.
Are those water soluble colored pencils or just standard
Oh,
color colored pencils?
so I have both. And for those, I do make a distinction. So you were saying, do I mark, like, how do I know which pens have which color ink? So my water soluble pencils have blue tape on them,
Mm.
and my non-water soluble don't.
Mm.
That's how when I look in my passport holder, I can see them easily. And then you can kind of see just down here how I'll add some, extra texture in some places where I feel it needs it.
Oh, those are so lovely. Do you have sort of a comfort zone for a subject that you found as an artist where you're, um, yeah, just a favorite subject?
I don't think I do. I mean, like many people, I struggle with humans. So that's something I've been working on a lot because I want to keep them in my book. But I am drawn, like this book happens to be all about nature because, well, that's where I've been traveling lately. But let me see if quick. I love drawing in the cities as well. So like I'll take walking tours quite often as I'm going in and around cities. And so like this is just sketching while on a free walking tour in
Mm.
Uruguay. And so as we were going down the tour, it was just capturing some of the historical information with some of the monuments. Um, yeah, I love line. So it's kind of anything that allows me to draw. I'm pretty much excited about. Even like another obligatory plane sketch.
It's fun to have that process, the travel process documented to help tell that story. I
Yeah.
like that sort
So,
of wide angle approach you've taken.
oh, thanks. It was a long flight, so I just kept going out further and further from from this focal, from what was right in front of me. Yeah, but I kind of love everything. I mean, not all of my sketches are outside. I'll sketch inside. I'll sketch the dog. I'll sketch fruit that we buy, like fruit that I buy. I mean, for me, so much of it is kind of just about documenting my life and kind of where I am in the moment. And so it's kind of like this is the many positions of my dog on his eighth birthday the other day. So
Oh, those are so sweet. Oh my goodness.
thanks.
What
So
a little cutie.
so mine's I consider my sketchbooks visual journals.
I've just got a question about, did the organization create something from your sketches or sketchbook after the hike? Just admiring the documentation you did here of, is it going into anything bigger?
Yeah, so actually, this morning I got a copy of a magazine. So the organization, Buddha 2024, they're putting together a magazine that combines my sketches, photos from a few of the few of the photographers who were on the hike, and then daily journal entries. So as a part of the hike, we carried a journal with us for the 21 days, and it was split up into 5 stages. So teams would keep changing. And two of us finished the entire 21 days. And so we would be passing the journal. And so every day someone on the team would write in it. And so there is going to be a magazine that comes out that has a combination of the journal entries, the photographs, and then all of my drawings from the trip. And those will go out to, I believe, anyone who participated, and then they'll be in every cabin along the D&T route, the Nordlandsruta.
Oh, that's so lovely. So then you've got this collective voice being shared along with your images too.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty exciting. It's going to be such an amazing keepsake to have. It was an incredible journey that I had never done before. You know, hiking for 21 days with just a backpack on your back, carrying all your stuff, you know, and then even in the planning of that, it was, well, how many tools do I bring? And so how do I cart those tools around? So for those who do head out and hike, like I also have, I forgot to share this, like these collapsible water cups. I don't know if you could spotlight the
Here, let me pull you up
one.
here.
Share just a couple things. So just one of these collapsible cups. And then to save weight, because I learned after reading a lot about ultralight hiking and such, saving weight is ideal. So I had one that had a metal ring, and to save a few ounces, I cut the ring off. I brought that. And then this waterproof bag, right? So for so long, I tried to use Ziploc bags to keep my sketchbooks protected, but they got to be too large. And so this super light Sea to
Hmm.
Summit bag weighs weighs I would say less than this cup weighs, and was able to hold two sketchbooks and my kit in it, and then I never worried about anything getting wet along the way. So like this again was like a $10 Amazon purchase, and it was a game changer in terms of making sure my stuff was protected.
Oh, that's amazing. I love those Sea to Summit. They're super handy and when you want to keep something really dry.
Yeah.
We've got a question. Do you know what your pack weight was?
Ooh, I so before food, it was 21 pounds. So after food, I don't know. We didn't have to carry 21 days worth of food, which I was so grateful for. We had a support vehicle. So I was able to, at most, I had to carry 5 days worth of food at one time. And so it was a lot of those prepackaged meals, peanut butter, and some other really good Norwegian stuff that I found that I liked.
Nice and dense.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned you were on the road, was it 150 days out of the past year? And I wonder if you might share any other little highlights or favorite moments from some other adventures that you've been
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it will be 150. We're leaving for Peru on Tuesday. And that I think will be our last, I hope to say last big trip of the year before going to visit family in the US. I just got back from Chile, and I cannot tell you, it has been like one of the most amazing places I've ever been to. We went to the Torres del Paine Park all the way down south. Um, and so here are just a couple of sketches uh, done from there. So these took a little bit longer than the regular 15-minute or so. So this one was done, we had a little cabin. There was three of us, and this was looking at the park. And then this was done on site, like sitting inside I said to you earlier before, a giant gust of wind came and blew my sketchbook over
Oh no.
and blew my pans out because they weren't double-sided tape. So remember, if you're going to do the magnets on the clip, double-sided tape them in. But sitting up at the top of Torres del Paine, and if anybody is looking for a place to go, um, it was absolutely incredible. Aside from the trip to Norway, it's been, I mean, I don't know. I think those are the top two
Oh,
destinations I've been
gorgeous.
on, and they happen in the same year. And then as a part of that, we even took a boat to the Magdalena Island where we got to see the penguins. And so we were on like a little walking tour there. So it was sketching the penguins, and they were nesting here. So they all had eggs, and they were all guarding them and safeguarding them until they're ready.
Oh, they
So
are so cute. Look at them all.
this
Did you
was,
make that sketchbook too, or is that another kind of paper?
yeah. So no, I didn't make this sketchbook. I actually bought it in Edmonds while at Sketcherfest, and it is, oh my goodness, I think I covered up the name. I can't remember the name of the book. Um, but it was pretty inexpensive. But again, it's another cold press, another like 50% cotton.
Hmm.
And I typically stick to those. I'll use I really like the handbook journals, the watercolor journals from Speedball, and I like the Fabriano sketchbooks, the watercolor sketchbook, which they're a little bit harder to find nowadays. I'll grab one. So that's this right here. Actually, I could put it here. Probably easier.
I love how you cover your sketchbooks in stickers. That seems like part of your experience too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because I tend to be at a lot of Urban Sketchers events. And so trading or like the Sketcher Fest. So yeah, so this I really like as well. For a while I was using the Pentalic Aqua Journal, but I can't get them anymore. So, that's okay. I'm pretty easy to switch from one to another as long as it's not a super textured cold press and not 100% cotton.
Okay, we've got a couple questions about you
Yeah, of
being
course.
in the world sketching, and one is, do you ever sort of sit away from people during the times you sketch, or do you sketch and talk at the same time? How much can your brain multifunction there?
Yeah, I can sketch and talk at the same time. I mean, my conversation might be a little bit slower, but yeah, I could sketch and talk at the same time. I feel like I'm always surrounded by someone. So, and especially because I travel so much, once I'm home, I don't get out here as much as I'd like to. So most of my sketching is done in the company of other people, or I'll talk to passersby. Yeah,
I've always loved that about urban sketching. It just feels like it invites conversation in a really fun way. Um,
absolutely. Yeah,
okay, and another practical question: do
yeah, of course.
you find you have to keep your hands warm, like try fingerless gloves, or kind of tough it out?
No, I'll tend to I'll wear if it's cold, like when we were in Chile, it was a little chilly one day. So I kept a glove on just one hand, and didn't keep a glove on the other. So I haven't I haven't had to worry about that though, living like most of the travel we've been doing hasn't been during the winter. And even in Norway, it was like spring. So I hiked most of the trip in a t-shirt or a rain jacket when needed. So once I move back to Canada next year, I guess I'll learn a little bit more about winter sketching.
Pull out the puffy jackets. That must have made it easier to keep a little lower pack weight too in Norway.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we had to like keep rain gear, and so had to keep a puffy coat, but all that packable stuff is kind of so light and could be condensed, so definitely a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I wonder if you might just share, like, some for someone just getting started with this, any little tips for getting over that bump of like, sometimes it's that fear of the page or being nervous about just sitting down out in public. Do you have any little tips for someone wanting to dive into sketching, whether out on, an adventure in the mountains or something urban in a town?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So fear, well, everybody, I don't know if anybody else out there, I used to have fear of like the first page of my sketchbook. Like I didn't want to open that up and have the first page be ruined, be not kind of a good drawing, because inevitably I feel like my first drawing in my sketchbook, I'm a little tight. So I always start the first page of my sketchbook with like a palette. So because I tend to change paper, color changes. So using these colors in this book might be different than if I use them in another book. And so it's a really bright, beautiful way to start a sketchbook and to get over that fear of that first page. Um, to get over the fear of drawing, if you've never drawn, don't look at the page, right? If you're a total first time beginner, you've never drawn, um, try and just let your eye follow your hand or your hand follow your eye, and just get your pen moving. Don't worry about it. I mean, you can turn the page and it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you focus on the feeling you get, right? That tactile feeling you get when you put that pen down and you're pulling it across, and just go super slow, because I feel like so often we draw what we think we see. And if we really slow down and look at an object, you'll see it in a different way. So slow down and don't worry about the result, because if you're going out there to sketch and you can kind of just sketch for yourself, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, that's terrific. And I wonder, we've just got a few more minutes, and folks wonder if you might do a little example sketch to get to watch
Yeah.
your hand move on paper if you've got a little
Yeah.
scrap page somewhere.
Yes, of course. I've got the scrap page with some of this. So and for nature stuff. So in when I was hiking, a lot of those sketches, you know, when I decide what tools I'm going to use, at first when I started the trek, I wasn't sure how it would go because sometimes, like you saw, I draw in black, I draw in tan, I draw in all these colors. Um, but for me, drawing natural elements, I like to use the urban gray because it's a little bit softer. So for something, I'm gonna kind of just use an image from the mountain I use. So I tend to draw kind of quicker. Um, so let's just say I'm drawing one of the mountains I know I've seen, and I don't always take my hand off the page. I'll pick it up and move, but I tend to be someone who kind of does more of a like a contour or a blind contour drawing.
Like
And
lines. Uh-huh.
I try and like knowing that I'm always gonna have like chances are I'm gonna have to go, right? Like I don't maybe have always enough time. I'll try and capture the essence of what I want. Like what are the things that stick out to me that I need to capture and that if I want to add color later, I can. So for me, for this right here, it's these shapes, the mountains. These little pieces I left blank would be most likely snow because on the last couple trips I had taken, there was snow-capped mountains. For some, it might be the rocks in the front, like in some of those other drawings. Put those in, and then I don't know, maybe if there's grass. So something as quick as this could let me walk away and then I know what I saw. I know like what my experience was like. And this theoretically could live on its own if I added some text, if I added some um maybe some more shadows to be so super quick because even if we don't have a ton of time, I'm just going to pull this over. Just kind of using some of these colors here, which have been my go-to colors. Um, I would start by mixing. So this is the lunar earth, and this here is like the ultramarine. Um, and I might pull in some of these, enough paint,
Oh,
right?
those make a
Come in,
beautiful neutral. Uh-huh.
right? So that's going to give me, because these rocks were super dark, but I don't know, you can already seeing here, the granulation in these two colors together is kind of incredible. So it starts working on its own. And I'm super impatient. So I just kind of, I tend to move quickly and dip things in to kind of get, so this here is a sponge. It's a super absorbent dry sponge that we just got at the symposium from this company. And it's been really cool to not have to use paper towel for that. I could get a name for everybody after. Um, so even being able to move along with something like this really quickly. So what is this taking us? A couple minutes. So I could put in some grass maybe. And this one is the SWC color, but I would imagine would be similar in that Daniel Smith. So I'm going to put this in. I'm kind of rough, not too precious about things because it's capturing the essence for me. Bring this in. And in an ideal world, you know, I might have time to let things dry a little bit. Um, and then to see, oh, maybe I'll put some of this in here. And then I would just wait, right? So now we're still a little bit wet, but that's kind of enough for me in this moment to, if I had to walk away, I could walk away. Um, if I have more time, as this starts to dry, I would come in and put in a darker shadow and you can even put some of that. So this is a little bit of that um, gray. And so I can move this in here. Okay, move this in here. And I lost that piece of snow, but that's fine. Right. So
Those darks really add more dimension.
yeah. And so it's pulling those in. And then we could come up here and we could toss in a rock or so. But like this is all stuff like that could be done even after the fact. And then it's all going to be way too wet to add. But I could come back in then and if I had some pencil, right, I can add some of these, add some texture, you know, create some different, right? I feel like adding sometimes that watercolor pencil adds another layer that I didn't have before. Um, but yeah, so that would be, it's still super wet, so I can't add too much more. Um, but using a dry media like this, you can come back in and kind of add some form and then walk away if you only had a few minutes.
And might you lay in a quick sky and just leave a little line between the sky and the mountains if you don't want them to bleed together?
Yeah, I could. I find I tend to forget to put skies in so often that sometimes they are a bit of an after. But yeah, absolutely. Depending on um, what that sky was like. I'm just gonna get a clean brush. Um, we can add a little bit of water and then pull some of that ultramarine and then pull that across. So depending on what that was. And then depending on how wet the paper is, you could play and you can kind of move.
I love how loose and simple that is, but it's really evocative.
Oh, thank you. I'm not a trained watercolorist. I've kind of just been teaching myself as I go over the years. So I'm sure I could um, do with a little more, but I think we all can put color down quickly. And again, it doesn't have to, for me, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? For me, I captured what was in front of me and enough to tell the story.
Oh, and the practice. Well, I've got one last question
Of
from our
course.
chat for you, and then would love to hear about, what's coming up and how people can stay in touch. And this last question is just if you have any tips about how to learn to write more neatly when sketching.
Oh, right. Yeah, just do it. I mean, it kind of sounds silly. If you don't want to ruin your drawing, you can do it on another piece of paper, and practice it out. I have spent time like that kind of, uh, like this page we showed earlier, right? So practice lettering. For a long time, I was making cards for my friends in this. And if you want to find an interesting way to write something, go on Google and be like, calligraphy H, if you want to start with an H, or calligraphy the word this, or type in the style, and then just practice. And then it's really just about kind of slowing down. I find the faster I write, the more sloppy it is. And then when I slow down, I write neater. Yeah.
Mm. Oh, well, gosh, this time just flew by.
Yeah.
Genine, I'm going to pull us up and just want to say thank you and thank you to everyone watching. And we'll go ahead and add some notes to the description. I know there's been some supplies that have come up that people are going to be curious for. But Genine, want to just ask you if you might share the different ways people can stay in touch, any cool things you've got coming up we should know about. And then we look forward to following your future adventures.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much first for having me too. This has been so incredible, and it's such a pleasure to be here and to see everybody out there. So to stay in touch, I'm on Instagram, Genine Carvalheira. I have a website, janinecarvalheira.com, and there you can sign up for my mailing list. I don't send them out very often, but when I do, it's information about upcoming things. My next thing is my trip to Peru that I was talking about. Um, don't know what's coming up next. I may or may not be working on a book, so that may be coming up in the next year. And then I'll definitely be heading over to the Urban Sketchers Symposium that will be happening in Poland in August of next year. So I'll see people there in person because I know that's my destination every year. So yeah. Oh, I think you're muted.
I just had the daughter or the kiddo I was saying goodbye to there. That sounds like something to look forward to, the Poland Urban Sketchers, for sure.
Yeah.
Our
So
ears open for that. Well, I just want to say thank you again. Your enthusiasm and energy for sketching is really infectious, Genine, and just love your approach with just the colors and spaciousness and storytelling. And I know I'm really inspired, and I think so many of our community is as well. And I often just think about creativity and community, and really thank you for just everything you do through your work and the Urban Sketchers and support of people getting out and exploring their world through sketching. So thank you.
yeah, thank you. And thank you for all you guys do. I mean, all of these lives, all of the courses you put on. I mean, you're putting it back out there and sharing with everybody. So thank you for what you guys do at Art Toolkit.
Oh, we love it. It's all part of
Yeah,
the fun. Well,
right.
thank you everyone who joined live. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your day and stay tuned for our next live demos. I'll just do one last note is we have a demo coming up next week to keep your eyes open for, and then a live event in partnership with Travelers Company USA. They're going to be coming up to Port Townsend on, I believe it's Saturday, November 9th. So if you are in the area and want to come do some sketching, we've invited all the local area urban sketchers from Tacoma, Bainbridge, Seattle to come out and do some sketching and hang out in Port Townsend. So keep our fingers crossed for good weather, and I would hope to see you there.
Awesome.
All
Thanks so
right, bye
much. Take
everybody.
care.
Yay!
Hey.
Thank you, Genine.
Thank you. That was awesome. I
Oh,
hope
that was really fun. Time just flies. And